Scotty G joins us now. Scotty G, good morning.
Good morning, DJ. Good morning, PK. How are you guys?
Good. Would you rather talk about the game or realignment?
You pick. I think both of them probably won't go Utah State's way, so we can touch on both of them.
What is not going to go the way in realignment? I mean, I get losing those schools isn't great. PK and I both agree that the moving towards the Texas schools, I'd say UTSA and Texas State first. But Sam Houston and North Texas, I'm open to them. Tons of people, tons of recruits, passion for football. I'd do it. And although it's not great, I also think it's not hideous and awful either.
You know, I said that on the air yesterday, too. Obviously, I think UNLV will probably find a way into that new Pac 6, 10, 12, whatever they end up at. So I don't think you can plan on UNLV being around. But New Mexico, Wyoming, and then you go into those Texas schools. I'm with you. Like, I know that there's a lot of gloom and doom up in Logan right now, and it's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. I saw John Wilner say that a lot of these schools could end up in the FCS, and it's like, all right, stop it, John. That's not going to happen. And so, look, is it ideal? No. Is it great? No. Is it a step backwards? Yeah, for sure. But is it the end of the world? No, not at all. And frankly, this, the Mountain West or whatever will have the same access to the college football playoff as this new Pac-6 does, or Pac-8. So, if anything, your path got a little easier because you don't have to play Boise State every year, and you don't have to play, Fresno or San Diego State. So, who knows? Maybe in a weird way, it ends up being a good thing. I also think a lot of these schools like UNLV and New Mexico and maybe even Utah State are now kind of positioning to the point where they put a lot more resources towards basketball. It's a lot easier to pay NIL dollars to 15 guys than it is 85 guys. So, I think there's a lot of schools that are looking at that and making some strategic moves in that direction.
So where do you think they'll go for the replacements then?
I think Texas. I think there'll probably be some overtures to Montana and Montana State, but I don't think they're overly interested in making the jump up. I think they like being a big fish in a small pond. Yeah. So I'm sure that there'll be some conversations there. I know Jake Hatch threw out South Dakota, North Dakota. I don't know. I know the Wyoming athletic director and president were big on adding the Dakotas in the latest, in a previous round of realignment. So I don't know if they'll reach out to them. But I think, UTSA. But frankly, if I were the Pac-6, I'm looking at UTSA. I think that's a sleeping giant right there.
I have read that, but then there's also they're looking at Memphis and Tulane. I do think UNLV, it just comes down to the arm twisting. Will UNLV be allowed to give up on Nevada, or will UNLV drag Nevada across the finish line into the league? I don't think they'll drag them across the finish line into the league. I think it'll just be UNLV.
And I can't remember. It's a guy that you've had on several times. He has a daily newsletter that comes out, and he said that UNLV, they are a little bit tied to Nevada, but he felt like they could separate themselves if needs be on that one. So,
who's starting a quarterback for the Aggies? Is it Barnes?
Me speculating on that one, I would think that's the direction they go. Petrus originally thought it was a high ankle sprain with him, and he'd be out a month to 6 weeks. It actually was not a high ankle sprain, and he is recovering nicely. And I think that if it was Boise State or another Mountain West school where the games really matter, I think Petrus probably could end up going. But I would guess, and again, this is me speculating, that they will hold him out another week, and maybe have him dressed for an emergency purposes. But I would think Barnes and Isaac Wilson are going to be your two quarterbacks coming up on Saturday.
When the schedule came out, you, me, PK, Yak, pretty much everybody looked at it and thought, yeah, the Aggies are going to be 1-2 after 3 games. Is there anything you see that makes you change your mind on that? And is the bigger question, can they come out of this game with enough positives so they have some momentum going to Temple, be 2-2, and then jump into the next 8 games, which is really what matters anyway?
100%. That Temple game, by the way, is their season. Because I mean, let's just be honest here. I know I'm the play-by-play guy and everything, but, it is what it is. Utah's a top 10 team, and even with Isaac Wilson most likely as your starter, that's the best defense. And talking to the coaches, they said that they saw the best offense that they've ever prepared for last week against USC, and this week the best defense they've ever prepared for in the University of Utah. And so, I mean, it is what it is. The chances of Utah State winning that game tomorrow are pretty slim. And so you start the season 1-2, and then you look ahead, and that Temple game is pretty much your season. If you go 2-2, you win that game, and then you got a big stretch against Boise and UNLV to start the Mountain West Conference season. You split those games, you're 3-3, and you're off to the races, and you have a chance to have a pretty good season. If they lose to Temple after losing most likely to Utah, then you're up against it, and you're trying to scratch and claw your way back to a 500 season the rest of the year. This team is really interesting because mentally they've been put through the ringer, man. And every day something else happens. Monday or Tuesday you got the DOJ report. Yesterday you got the news on realignment. And this has nothing to do with these players. It has nothing. They've done very little wrong in all of this. They don't deserve this. But yet they take the mental brunt of it. They're the ones that have people tweeting at them or family members calling like, "Hey, what's going on with your program up there?" And so the way they've handled it so far, I really like the way that they've attacked it and handled it. And but I gotta imagine if things don't go well tomorrow and I mean go really poorly like how it did against USC, and then they lose against Temple, you worry about if this team mentally fractures for the rest of the year. So that's why I think they need to play well tomorrow. I'm not saying they need to win tomorrow, but I think they need to show much better tomorrow than they did against USC, and then win against Temple, and then I think everything's on the table for this season.
You talk about that report that came out, and certainly some of these guys, most of them, if not all, had nothing to do with all this. But I'm just wondering, it really paints a picture of what's going on there and why they're doing it. And I'm wondering, the athletic director, that's part of the reason, we needed to clean house. We needed new people and all that stuff that's going on in the administrative level. Just how much is it burdening the football program?
I think it's burdening it a lot. I mean, we've been around enough coaches to know that any little bit of recruiting ammunition you can have is valuable. And I think that anytime you say, hey, look at this report, look at this culture up here, look at this interim coach who knows how long he's going to be there, and it's hit after hit after hit. I was talking to another head coach inside the state, and he was giving me grief back in July about what is it with your university? What you got going on up there, man? Can you go a day without any drama up there? And I'm like, hey, nothing I would love more than not to have drama surrounding Utah State. There's this weird little black cloud above that university that whether it's a player drowning, which is just a horrific, mind-bending, horrific event that happened. And then you got the DOJ report, and then you got the firings, and then you've got all this other stuff. And frankly, in talking to some of the people involved, I don't know if it's going to get much better, or it might get a little worse before it gets better. And simply because you've got a very adamant former deputy athletic director and head football coach who are not going to go quietly into the night. And they feel like they've got documentation and resources that say, hey, we want our voice to be heard. And I think that's going to be another angle to all of this that is going to keep Utah State in the news cycle because, they lost their employment. And frankly, they've lost their reputation, whether it's deserved or not. They don't think it is. And so they're not going to go down without a fight. So this is going to be a long, drawn-out situation. And I can't help, PK, but think that it's going to affect your psyche of your football team.
Do you think that they can ever see what can be without being unburdened by the past?
This season?
Yeah.
I mean,
Jock didn't say that on the air, did he? No. Do you think they can see what can be without being unburdened by what has been?
I don't know what Utah State did that this season have not.
He doesn't know where I'm going with this.
I know. I don't know where you're going with this.
Okay.
I'm
We'll
sorry.
let it go then.
What I do look, I mean, I think this is a good football team. I mean, I think they're a good team, and I think they're as talented as the team that won a Mountain West title back in 21. The problem is they've
Really?
got, yeah, oh yeah, 100%, especially on the offensive side. If you have
Why were they picked so low in the conference?
well, they were picked 9th that year too. I mean, look, it's death taxes, and Utah State picked 8th or 9th in whatever poll in the preseason polls. You know, that's how it is every year. And so I think they're a really good team. They're much better than they were last year defensively, and they've got great offensive weapons this year. If they get Petrus back in the lineup, I think the sky's the limit of what they can do offensively. So. But the problem is their schedule's way harder than it was in 2021, and they're dealing with a lot of off the field, drama and nonsense that 21 team didn't have to worry about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Can't argue that, right, DJ?
There's no question about that. And also the schedule, I'd have to go back and look at that schedule. This schedule just looks way harder.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
This schedule, the fact that they've got two teams that are top 15, top 10. I mean, they're top 15 now. We'll see where they are in a few weeks. And the fact that Boise State, who was rock solid for a long time and was a little up and down, it looks like they look a lot better than they've looked the last few years. It's early. And the fact that they took on the Washington State game and they're only playing 7 league games, it's really stacked against them. The Temple game and the UNLV game just look massive right now.
Yep. And, I mean, in that 2021, their so-called money game was at Washington State, a game they won. I mean, that wasn't USC. That wasn't Alabama. That was
right.
Washington State. And they were able to win that game, and off they went.
All right, Scotty G, we will hear you tomorrow. Dueling pregame shows. Are you going to report on the ratings for the pregame shows? Because inquiring minds want to know.
Yes, I will, for sure.
Excellent. We'll have an Aggie pregame show and a Ute pregame show, both leading up to the Aggie and Ute game. You'll be on 1280, right?
Yes. Yeah,
And
Utah State game, and then we'll have the Utah, centric pregame on 97.5, and then we'll have the play-by-play on both, and then separate again in the postgame.
Okay, there it is. Scotty G, thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. We'll listen to you tomorrow.
I'm sorry, PK. That was my fault, not your fault. I apologize. That's not you. That's me.
Okay, all good.
I've been under the weather lately. I'm taking a lot of cold medication, so I apologize.
You're good.
All right.
Your feedback when we return. We got people voting on the Utah and BYU games, blowouts, close games, upsets. We'll get to that next.